We believe in a global community where all people have access to basic needs such as water and food.
Where children are safe in classroom, studying and realizing their dream.
And where parents have opportunities to earn a sustainable income that allows them to care for their families with dignity.
Since 2007, we have continued to depend on our founding roots and have grown through an ever-expanding network of relationships. We know it is because of our core belief to invest first in people rather than solutions that we have built a community that continues to create sustainable transformation.
We know that investing in a community-led vision will result in sustainable change that can radically shift the inequalities in this world.
The approach believes that a community has its own unique skill sets and abilities to diagnose and come up with solutions in a collective way.
The humanitarian vision they have, which directly focused on poverty reduction, enabling children to get a quality education, enabling local communities to get clean water, food, shelter, and others.
Our vision for community remains the same as it was from day one, to be a people who are grounded in our shared humanity, who center the voices and experiences of those who are most impacted by the work we do, and who practice a continuous discipline of self-reflection that grows awareness of our shortcomings and strengths so that we can keep showing up for one another with authenticity, humility, and grit.
We remain committed to creating an atmosphere where a true partnership can exist.
Where people feel valued, needed, heard, and know that they belong. Where we lean into discomfort and vulnerability, knowing it yields trust and respect.
My hope to my community to be prosper in every direction.
My hope for my community is if we continue to support on education, especially in education, the children will change their life in their community.
My hope for my community is that we recognize the power that we have in our diversity. My hope is that we thrive, not despite our differences, but because of them.
My hope in my community is to be able to see a great community that's full of role models, where one day I can wake up, go to a hospital, see one of the community girls being a doctor. Waking up, going to a high school and meeting one of the community girls as a principal, where I can go to this community and see the excel in agriculture. And coming up to see a future that is full of hope, where I've seen a lot of smile in their faces.
Good evening and welcome to Harambee 2020. My name is Kate Ten Harmsel and I'm the Executive Director of Community. We have an incredible night planned for you. And if you are at our April event, welcome once again to my living room. Harambee may look a little different this year, but we still have the opportunity to make it the most impactful night in community history. We would love to know where you're calling in from tonight, so in the comments, please let us know. And while you're doing that, let's cheers to an impactful night ahead. We are thankful that this is where you chose to be tonight. For those who are new here, Community is a community-led development organization that partners with East African communities to create sustainable solutions to poverty. Together with our partners, we create opportunities that allow people to access basic needs, a quality education, and a sustainable income. Our work is grounded on two things: trust and relationships. We know that it is through relationships that trust is built, and that is in a space of trust where true creativity, accountability, and transformation is grown. We are so excited to have you here tonight, and Harambee is our biggest event of the night. It's Swahili for all pulled together, and tonight we are pulling together for three major needs in our Kenyan communities. The first is a clean water project for Enkutoto village, a sustainable agriculture project for the Alimony village, and 5 university scholarships for young female leaders. Last year at Harambee, we fundraised over $50,000 and fully funded the 3 programs that we needed to fund. This year, we are looking to do the same thing. Again, our goal is $50,000, and throughout the night, we will be pulling up our fundraising tracker to show you how far we have come. We have a great head start coming into the night thanks to our event sponsors. They have donated throughout this year that allows us to walk into tonight already with some fundraising behind us. And so we are looking to this group of people to help us meet that goal by the end of tonight. There are 2 ways to give. There's the link that's in the YouTube video description, and then you can also text CU20 to 44321. I also want to say a huge thank you to our team of volunteers and our humanitarian storyteller in Kenya, Clayne Neto, who poured so much passion and creativity into tonight's event. Literally, none of this would be possible without that team. Now, let's get the event started. I am so excited to introduce you to my co-host for the evening. He is a dear friend of mine. He has been around community since the very beginning, and he is a strong advocate for girls and women's rights in Kenya. He is a proud Maasai man, and he is an incredibly dedicated father to 7 children and a faithful husband to his wife, Sheila. So please join me as we welcome our Kenya Country Director, Duncan Sakimpa. Hello, Duncan.
Hello, Kathleen. Thank you so much. Good morning from Kenya. As Kera said, my name is Duncan Sakimpa, the Country Director, Kenya. And I'm indeed profoundly honored and exceedingly humbled to join you from this part of the world, East Africa, Kenya. To fundraise for a cause, and what we have achieved so far as an organization is because of your generous giving to our community. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Duncan. I shared with everybody already what we're fundraising for, but I also want to quickly share why tonight, like why this moment is so critical in our partner communities. As we know, COVID has impacted our global community in radical ways, and everybody around the world has felt the impact of it in one way or another. And our partner communities are not excluded from that. Earlier this week, the UN's, or the Goalkeepers report, which tracks the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals, came out. And in it, they shared that the level of extreme poverty has increased by almost 7% in sub-Saharan Africa. And extreme poverty means living on less than $1.90 per day. This is the first time that that number has increased in the last 20 years. And so these projects that we're fundraising for tonight come at such a critical moment in these communities' journeys. So I just am hoping that you can share a little bit of how you've seen that statistic that we know about play out in some of the communities that you live in.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kate. And ever since the first case of COVID-19 or coronavirus was reported in Kenya in the second week of March, life has never been the same again. Indeed, there were certain raft of measures that were taken by the government to prevent further spread into the communities. And one of those measures that were taken was a closure of institutions of learning from elementary throughout to university and other tertiary institutions. To date, the institutions are yet to reopen, though there are plans at Top Gear to reopen the institutions, hopefully before the end of the year. Other raft of measures that affected citizens directly is the cessation of movement also, which also affected the cessation of movement of food and other essential items throughout the country. Nairobi, capital city, became a no-go zone, except for essential, those workers delivering essential services. This one in turn affected the markets because when there is a low supply of food, the prices go up. There was a closure of markets. Hospitality industry literally shut down. And the aviation industry shut down. And there is a huge loss of jobs. And of course, in a country where a huge percentage of the population live below $1 a day, it just wasn't a worse situation. So that is what happened. But we are hopeful that all will be well.
Yeah, we are too. So throughout tonight, you're going to hear from some of our friends in East Africa. You'll meet Mama Helen and her daughter Elizabeth, Mama Sam and her daughter Winnie, and Stella and her mother Paulina. And the stories that we are going to share tonight, these are their stories. They knew that tonight we were going to be gathering with many of our supporters and partners here in the US. And so this is the story that they wanted the world to hear. And we present these stories to you with such humility, knowing the great amount of trust that has been given to us to deliver these stories that are not our own to this community of supporters. And so we are just so thankful that they shared, and we're really excited to share them with you and to meet some of our partners in East Africa who are directly impacted by the work that we are fundraising for tonight. So the first community that we're going to visit is the Enkutoto community. This is a community that I love. We're going to meet Mama Helen and her daughter Elizabeth. Duncan, do you remember the very first time that we went to Enkutoto?
Oh yes, indeed. It was way back in 2016. And when Kathleen informed us that during her upcoming trip with other community volunteers and board members, that she would like to spend the night in a traditional maninyata at Enkutoto, I could not comprehend how that was going to be possible, you know. And having personally been born in such a house, as traditional structure, I knew how uncomfortable it can be for a first-time visitor because of the smoke that is and its nature, where the occupants spend the night, and the mattress is a dry skin of a cow. And underneath it is some manure, animal manure, and some grass to give it that spongy feeling of a mattress. And that morning, children just rushed out of their mothers' houses where the visitors had spent the night in an aim of catching a first glimpse of the visitors, white guys who have spent a night in a traditional house, to see whether they survive up to the morning. Anyway, to cut a long story short, the community was surprised by such humility that was exhibited by the visitors. And their long-term strong relationship began since ever. And this has become a home away from home for all of us. Yes.
Yeah, it's true. Every time that I'm preparing to come, I say, we have to go see Mama Helen. We have to go stay with her. This community is so special. As Duncan said, we got the opportunity to stay with them in their home back in 2016, and we have done that every year since. I actually slept fantastic in a manyatta. I don't know about the two ladies I had on either side of me, but I slept great. It was probably the best night of sleep I've had in Kenya. But the women in this community, what I love about the Enkutoto community is that they have such a strong sense of community. The women will come from all over the place. They'll sit under a tree. They'll do their beadwork, which is their favorite thing to do, chatting and laughing. And You can just feel, anybody who's come with us and been to this community, you can feel the sense of community in your bones and in your soul. And when you leave Inkusiran, you immediately feel lost. I'll never forget, I think it was 2 years ago, I looked at you and I was like, I miss them already. It was true. There's such a spirit of community in the Inkusiran village. So I'm really excited for everybody to meet Mama Helen and her daughter Elizabeth.
If anybody wants to know the true definition of community, visit Inkusiran village.
Yes, you can come with us.
Yes.
Aya kayuna yana murwa na ishunya nkore nikiyaku linda nkore mikiare nkore nikitumengi soma netum inkera ngo irkasin tenkaraki enkisuma neeku ildakitarini neeku irmalimuni naa kele murua dukuya nikitumorore ile Enkai amu ore kanisa naa kiteng'en inkera ning'ua mbaa enkarruisho neponu aaku inkera naamayiana nikincho Enkai enashe amu ninye naas kiomonito ake Enkai mitadoiki iyiok mayianat pooki ompukunot pooki nerrip iyiok te pooki toki amu ninye olchekut neeku kayieu ake neeku enakop ang' osupuko metaa mikiata enkure nimikiata enyamali epooki toki nikiata eseriani amu Enkai naishooyo naa pooki pee kitum teneiruk inkera ang' ororei le Enkai tenikimbung' ororei le Enkai amu ninye ake orikoo iyiok te pooki toki neeku kagira aisujisho kainyototo naa kalo aas irkasin pooki kalo irkeek kalo enkare aidipa duo atalepisho neeku ayiaraki inkera endaa painyototo alo irkasin.
Sidai taa esiai enkare tenkaraki tenikitum enkare safi ore kinoto enkare safi naa keeku kiti esiai esipitali amu ore naa usafi naa keret naa iyiok ina are metaa kinotito enkare nikiwok safi naa sidai sii ena are amu keret iyiok ata teramatare keret iyiok kiramatisho amu ekipuo apa eneedo kipuo awoku enkare nekipuo apa ewueji nelakua oleng kilomitani kumok oleng ore taata kinotito ena are naa keret iyiok amu keeku ilotu aas esiai tenaa eripare ninye enaa ena naisaidia matiripa ntokitin naikash tenkaraki kaata enkare neret iyiok ina siai enkare neeku isidai enkare oleng nitoki aaku sidai sii tenikiremishore isidai pii amu ore pee kitum neme nkishu ake naawok neme iyiok ake naawokito kinotito nee kiremisho ore enkiremore naa kisidai amu keeku tenairemu endaa naa keeku naa kenyai ena daa ai tiatua aji nemaitoki alo ainyang'u mpuka tosokoni nemaitoki alo ainyang'u doi ninye irpaek neeku keret iyiok ena siai amu sidai esiai olchambai oleng kejo naaji tenikitum ilchambai naa keret iyiok amu keaku kiti maitoki alo olduka alo ainyang'u mpuka, nemaitoki alo olduka ainyang'u enkurma, neeku kaaret naa amu etaa tenaas esiai enaa enaripare naa kaisaidia tiang' amu mitoki naa mpisai aipang' aitoki aapuo likae, keeku ele marei eshukunye iropiyiani aret. Neeku naa isidai enkiremore oleng' tenikitum naaji ina siai nikimbung' naa entoki nareu irmareita lang' dukuya. Sawa.
I love those women so much, and I'm so grateful that they were willing to share their story with us. Mama Helen is always such a source of encouragement and hope, and she truly cares about every single person that she meets and remembers everyone who's ever visited her. Her daughter, Elizabeth, who you also met, is the leader of the women in this community, and she spoke a lot about the importance of access to clean water in their community.
Yep, indeed. Water is life, and without it, we cannot achieve any meaningful development. Back in our country, Kenya, the Constitution of Kenya 2010, specifically Article 43, guarantees every citizen that he should have access to clean water and sanitation as a right. But this remains a mirage to so many millions of Kenyans, and several studies have shown that approximately about 17 million Kenyans out of the 47 million still lack access to clean and safe drinking water, which is about approximately 40% of Kenyans. This year, as we partner with the Enkutoto community, we ask you, the well-wishers, to partner with us and give to this cause so that we can reverse this particular the trend in our Enkutoto village. Without water, there can never exist life. And where there exists water, which is not safe for drinking, it can never be quality life in that particular environment. Water is the foundation in which all other human development stands. And no wonder, up to 60% of our human bodies is water.
Yeah, water is so important. And every time that we either sit with a group of women or we meet a new community that we're maybe going to partner with, I learned something new about how critical water is to the community and how it benefits the community. I think it's easy to wrap our heads around some of the health benefits because we all know you need water to survive. But something that I learned recently in talking with you and Pastor Karoka was how water unifies a family. If you think about the women, and especially we're going to talk about Enkutoto, who we're fundraising for tonight, they spend 5, 6, 7 hours a day walking to get water that's oftentimes dirty, that they know is going to make their children sick. And then you have the men who are in charge of the livestock, and they're walking, they're leaving for sometimes 3 months at a time to look for areas where the cattle can graze or where they can drink water. And so when you have a centralized water source in the community, you bring the family back together. Now you have mothers and fathers who are present in the family, where they are able to care for their children and mentor them and raise them up as strong leaders in their community. And I thought that was such a powerful benefit that I don't think was ever obvious to me. I had never thought about it, how access to the water source actually brings the family together.
Wow, that is nice. And Enkutoto village is one of our remotest villages in our project areas. And it has a myriad of disadvantages compared to the other villages. But despite that, it's situated in a very beautiful scenery between several hills. And it stands there, and it's a unique village. And more so, it has unique and beautiful people. The women currently in that particular village do like a round trip of 25 miles to fetch water from a riverbed, which is not even safe for human consumption. The road network in that area is also pathetic, but they have a very strong leadership that has always looked for partnership to benefit their community, and led by their local chief, Daniel, and a female assistant chief, who is a champion of girl rights and a pastor who has always, brought his family, his community together, and who is humble and focused. So we have unique people in this particular community.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I love that one of their chiefs is a female. I thought that was the first time I'd ever met a female chief, and that was in February this year is when we met the Enkutoto community. And when I found out that Ruth was one of the chiefs, I was like, yes, a female chief. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Enkutoto community is a community that we fundraised for back at our April event when we were doing our COVID-19 response. They've, like you said, it's a really remote village. There's not a good road structure to get there. They're walking 25 miles round trip for water. And I was told that to get fresh vegetables or house supplies, they're walking 50 miles round trip. And it's not like they're getting in their car and driving to these places. They're carrying this on their backs, on the backs of their donkeys. It's just, you can't even comprehend what a day in the life of an Enkutoto woman is. But in April, when we fundraised for them, we were doing food relief because all construction in Kenya had shut down. The community was facing more and more, families were facing starvation. And that was really the only solution that we had to protect and care for this community well. But now, since construction has reopened, we can shift our focus and look at long-term sustainable solutions that will allow this community to become water and food secure. You know, once they have the water source, then they'll be able to start doing agriculture, and the community, as we'll see in our next video, will just begin to thrive. This is absolutely our biggest and most urgent need. The cost to drill this borehole, which is what the clean water source is called, is $50,000. And so tonight we're looking to raise 50% of that. $25,000 of our $50,000 goal is to complete phase 1 of the Clean Water Project. And that'll be enough to drill this almost 700 feet into the ground in order to hit the aquifer. So we have already identified where the aquifer is. We've done 2 hydrogeological surveys. And now the only thing standing between the Enkutoto community and having access to clean water is $50,000. So if we want to make sure that the Enkutoto community has access to clean water by the end of 2020, which I think would be a fantastic way to end this crazy year, we actually need to go above and beyond our $50,000 goal tonight and actually fundraise $75,000. It's a lot of money, but I believe in this community. I believe that there are enough people who are going to champion around the Enkutoto community and make this vision a reality. Before we move on to the next video, let's see where our current fundraising is. I actually can't see it. Okay, we are at $23,545, which is incredible. We are almost halfway through our fundraising goal and not yet even halfway through this event. So I believe that by the end of tonight, we'll have the $50,000, and maybe by tomorrow morning when we wake up, we'll have the $75,000. Thank you so much to people who are donating early. We encourage you to continue considering what gift you can give tonight to make sure that one of these projects is, all of these projects are fully funded. Now we are gonna go and meet Mama Sam and her daughter Winnie from the Alimony community. Winnie is one of our education scholarship recipients, and last year at Harambee, when we held it here in Chicago, we fundraised for their clean water project. And 4 months later, in September of last year, we were there when they turned the water on for the first time. It was incredible to be a part of. We're going to hear more about that after the video.
Hello all, I'm Winnie Otek from BC Girls Form 3. I'm one of the community scholarship girls sponsor. This is my hometown, homeland, Amasi homeland. My parents are farmers, livestock keeping, both livestock keeping and crop growing, and I like the practice. These are my usual household work. The first one is helping my mom in during utensils washing, compound cleaning, and sometimes we both, it's difficult for one person to go and fetch water alone. So I used to help her. We both help one another and also help each other during collecting of firewood. We both collect firewood and fetch water together, because sometimes it's difficult for one person to do it. Another thing is about my mom. I like her character. She's very hardworking, and sometimes she takes her time, most of her time, to model her siblings, children like us. Sometimes you might even choose her to be your role model, but at all, but in other terms, she's not yet literate. But just how she's putting herself, her hard work, it's make her your role model.
Ore taa ena kerai naa ekiboita apa aitadamu ewueji nelakwa. Ore ena kutuk nayieu neeku apa ewueji nelakwa. Neeku ore ena kerai naa namba 11 apa teinoto. Ninye etamayiana Enkai. Etii dukuya ninche inkera 5. Imiet neeku namba 11. Neeku naa kipuo naa enkop nalakwa oleng. Nikincho naa Enkai enashe tenkaraki enkolong eduo taata. Kiimaitie engoloto sapuk oleng tenkaraki porini naarriyo nikipuo. Neeku kietuo apa aponu ayang'iyang'a amu ore apa ena kerai naa katoiwuo apa torkeju. Kidiasa apa tinaado oleng. Neeku naa neewuo Enkai ayeng'iyang'a iyiok kipuo taata netaa napuo aapuo enkare. Neeku naa ore ena kerai ai nikiimaitie engoloto pookin onkera ainei, nikietuo naa taata nabanji kietuo aponu aatum enkare tiaulo. Kitishipa oleng tenkaraki ena siai sidai enkare nikinoto apa tekishomi, etamayiana yiok Enkai. Nikietuo aibelekenya, nibelekenya yiok maisha ang', nibelekenya yiok enkishui tenkaraki nikinoto enkare sidai natii auluo. Ore naarri naa kias esiai sapuk oleng. Nikinyamalu, nikimoyiaa, nibung' iyiok imoyiaritin tenkaraki nimikiata enkare nikindim aitumia toonkang'itie. Kake ore tenakata eewuo empiris Enkai, kinoto enkare tekishomi, neeku meeta enimikindim ataas. Ildaikani 5 ake nikibaya nkang'itie, nikipuo aas esiai pookin naba enaa enaishaakino. Nikitodua ajo esiai sidai amu eewuo enkishui ang' ajing' ewueji sidai. Nekinyamal apa oleng tenkaraki esiai enkare. Nikincho naa Enkai enashe amu etaasa Enkai ang'. Meekure kinyamal kabisa. Kietuo aatum afya, nibelekenya yiok irang'i looseseni tenkaraki enkare nikinotito. Neeku kitishipate oleng. Nikincho Enkai enashe. Sawa, ore taata ninye kitishipate apa tenkaraki enaare apa nikinoto nataana. Nikietuo apa aponu aun impuka. Ore naarri naa nkiloi 20 kipuoyie aapuo ildusil aapuo ayau impuka. Metumi naarri entoki nainosieki endaa tenakop. Enkurma narok ake enyai. Kake ore taata nikitishipate amu etaa yiok ore iloomunyi naa yiok nagira aibulasaki endaa. Yiok taata eponu ainyang' tenkaraki enaare ena muradi oltinka apa nikinoto. Neeku etamayiana yiok Enkai oleng tenkaraki ele tinka. Idolta ajo kiata sukuma, kiata mpoosho, kiata irnyanya, neeku kimayiana oleng. Meekure apa kipuo enelakwa nemekure kinya enkurma narok tenkaraki enaare oltinka. Neeku etamayiana yiok amu itodua ajo ore enkare naa enkishui. Neeku kincho Enkai enashe tenkaraki enaare nayewuo karibu amu mekure eeta entoki nemikiindim ataas. Mekure eeta entoki nikilaikino ataas tenkaraki enaduo olchamba nayewuo kishomi naa tenkaraki enkare. Meyiolo oshi ena maendeleo king'asiakino taata tenakop ang'. Kake eyawua naa ninye Enkai enking'asia amu ore Enkai naa enenking'asia amu keas imbaa nemeitekini tele purkel lang'. Kinoto taata intokitin sidan. Ildusil apa kinosieki impuka tenakop. Neeku naa etamayiana yiok Enkai, idolta ajo meeta entoki nemetii ele shamba. Neeku kirukito ake kintoki ake ailepunye ena siai ang' amu yiok naataasate toonkaik ang'. Tenkaraki ena muradi enkare apa nikinoto, etamayiana yiok oleng. Neeku naa kipuoito dukuya kigira aendelea. Neeku nejia taa etiu.
It's incredible to see how this community has transformed in just 1 year's time. Joining the conversation tonight are two women who helped plan tonight's event and who are also with us last September when we were in the Alimony community when they turned their water on for the first time. So please join me in welcoming Sarah Gachewski and Sage Benavides.
Thanks, Kate. Harambee 2019 in Chicago was an extremely powerful night. As a volunteer, I had helped for months before planning, and then the night of the event itself, I worked specifically at the partner shop to raise funds for the Clean Water Project for the Alimony community. I shared with our guests how they walked over 10 miles each way, oftentimes to get dirty water, not even clean water. And I fully emphasized that it was our most expensive project of the night because I really, really wanted to fully fund it. At the end of the evening, we actually did raise funds for that project and the other two projects we were fundraising for. And it was just a night full of hope. And I felt so inspired that evening. Later that year, just 4 months after in September, I had the privilege of joining the team for the East Africa trip. And I actually got to meet a lot of the members of the Alimony community. So I met with the women and children that I had spoken about just 4 months before. And I think what it helped me realize is that we need to be reminded that these are not just statistics and facts, that these are real people. And they have a lot more in common with you and me than I think I realized before going. You know, these are mothers who want their children to be raised strong and healthy. These are children who want to become doctors and lawyers, just like our mothers and our children do. They're not just statistics, but these are people with hopes and dreams for their community. And that day in September, just 4 months after raising the funds at Harambee, Chicago, we witnessed the community turning on the water for the first time. And it was such a powerful day. Definitely one that I will never, ever forget. We saw so much hope and joy in their eyes. And I think you could just feel that burden being lifted off of their shoulders, knowing that they didn't have to spend hours, you know, of their day walking back and forth and leaving their children at home, or even the children having to not go to school because they were spending time walking to get water. But more importantly, I think what we witnessed was them realizing what can we do next. So that is, you know, what we just watched in the video. They took that clean water, and then just 4 months after that, they had a whole acre of crops and sustainable food for their community. So I try to share this experience with others as a reminder of why we fundraise, because sometimes it can be hard. It can seem so distant and disconnected from us here in the United States, but through fundraising, we can translate our support into tangible impact for these communities. So tonight, we are building off of that change that we started last year at Harambee and hoping to continue to support the community to grow and thrive. And this is a big reason why I personally support community and our partners, because this is truly a sustainable change that will last.
Yeah, Sarah, I had a similar experience having heard about these communities so much prior to last September. But then the moment that we got into Kenya, the need of these communities becomes really personal. We visited Enkutoto, which was one of the best days of my life as well, before we visited Alimony. And the water project in Siren was still not completed. So we witnessed the challenges that they faced every day as we walked with them to the water source that they go to collect water, and as we visited their homes. So to then go to Alimony the next day and to experience exactly what you said, this joyful day, there was happiness and people were, filled with joy because their community's vision was becoming a reality. Everything changed the moment that water was turned on. Like you said, they didn't have to go the 10 miles that they were traveling even the day before that. The new opportunities and the shedding of certain challenges that we saw that day made these needs for these communities even clearer and even more personal, and that fundraising and those efforts became more personal. But what's equally as exciting is that this community had a need and they had a want, which was to get access to clean water. But they didn't stop there. They started immediately thinking, what can we do now? What can we do next? Which we saw in the last video. And now for them, this next step of sustainability and fulfilling their community's vision is this agriculture project, which will only continue to change their community.
Yes, indeed. Early this year, the community began a crop garden where they now grow fresh vegetables and other staple foods for their consumption. And they sell the surplus to the neighboring villages and earn an income that is used to boost household income. It's indeed motivating to see how access of water in a community has opened opportunities to other essential, human developments. Kenya is a developing country in East Africa, and like many other developing nations, it's struggling with food insecurity, which has caused, community conflict in some regions. And such efforts seen in such communities like Alimony are both timely and indeed very important.
Yeah, I mean, I had the privilege of being there in September when they turned the water on the first time. And then again in February, we showed up and they had already planted all these crops and they were getting ready to actually harvest their first kale. And I think what's so cool about this project is it really hits two things. It hits a basic need, which is food security. And then it hits a sustainable income by economically empowering the women. And where in the Maasai tribe, the cattle is like the economy there, and that belongs to the men. And so this is a project and an income that belongs to the women. And you saw Mama Sam, she was beaming with pride in that video. She was just so excited to see what is now possible. And she said that she can't wait to extend that even further. And so the project we're fundraising for tonight is our Sustainable Agriculture Project. It will provide a greenhouse and 2 acres of drip irrigation, which will allow the community to use less water, which we really want for them to use less of the Clean Water Project for growing the crops. It'll allow them to grow it in a controlled environment so that they're not dependent on the rainfall. There's extended droughts in this region, and it will allow them to grow it year round, which again promotes the food security. So far we've talked about 2 out of 3 of our areas of work, access to basic needs and access to a sustainable income. And both of those address the immediate needs of the community. But the third part of our work is access to a quality education. And this really addresses more of the long-term needs of a community. It's investing in the future generation so that they can grow up, just as we've heard from Mama Sam and from Helen, with more opportunities than they had. So the story we're going to hear next is from a young girl in West Pokot, Kenya. Her name is Stella, and her story is not one that you will forget. Our education program allows students the opportunity to get this quality education all the way through university level. And Stella's story is going to show you the stark reality of what life is like without an education, through what her and her mother do every single day when she's not in school. But what blows my mind even more about her story, and I really want everyone to listen for this, is the thread of hope throughout everything she says. This young girl and her family face so many challenges, and yet she always ends her statements with a statement of hope. And I think that is just the most powerful part of Stella and Paulina's story. And so I'm excited to and humbled to introduce you to Stella and her mother, Paulina.
Naitwa Chepengat Stella Lursale. Huyu ni mama yangu. Naitwa Paulina Lursale. Mimi ni mtoto wa Pokot. Kwetu ni hapa Alale. Mimi niko shule. Nasoma shule ya Alale Girls. Form 3. Kwa sasa niko nyumbani kwa sababu ya corona. Nasaidia wazazi. Nasaidia kazi nyingi sana. Kama vile kwenda kuni, kuchota maji, kwenda gold. Sasa tukienda gold, tukipata hata pesa kidogo, hiyo ndio tunakula. Juu hatuna vitu ya wazazi wangu hawafanyi kazi chochote. Gold ndio tunajitegemea. Tunaenda tu kila siku ndio tukule. Tunaenda gold. Tusipoenda gold tunalala bure. Sasa tunang'ang'ana tu sana ndio tupate chenye tunakula. Kwa sahi niko tu. Saa zingine naenda nyumba, nasoma. Nachukua muda kidogo, nasoma, naenda goal na mama, tunaenda na yeye. Sasa hiyo kazi tena ni ngumu sana. Napata hata ukitoka gold, umechoka, hata kushika kitabu tena ni ngumu. Hakuna kitu kenye unaelewa. Usome hakuna kenye inaingia. Sasa hiyo ndio shida yenye inatokea. Lakini sisi tunang'ang'ana tu hivyo. Na tunaomba Mungu shule ifunguliwe tu. Ndio tuendelee kama kawaida, tuende shule. Shule ifunguliwe ama corona iishe tu. Ndio tuende shule tusome kama kawaida. Hata tulikuwa tuna haya. Kwa tukimaliza shule tulikuwa tunasema tunajengea wazazi nyumba. Tutoke kwa hii mashida yenye tuna face hii. Sasa corona sasa imeharibu maneno. Tunang'ang'ana tu hivi na tuko na hope kwa watafungua shule. Na tunaenda tu kama kawaida. Kwa sababu ya hii corona, sisi kama wasichana tunapitia changamoto nyingi sana. Kama wasichana wa Pokot. Wasichana wanakeketwa kwa sahi. Wasichana wanaolewa haraka. wazazi wao wanapeana haraka, wengine wanapata mimba ya haraka. Hiyo ni changamoto yenye inatusumbua sana. Hata kwa saa hii mtu anastuka kuwa ama wazazi watakupeana. Yaani huko tu unafikiria, mtu hata akiwa mwenyewe anafikiria ni kama wazazi wataweza mpeana, ama wazazi wataweza kuambia kitu kenye inakufanya lose hopes ya shule. Yaani maneno nyingi watu wanatuambia tu, wanasema simwache tu shule, muolewe tu, mpate tu mimba, alafu si shule bado iko tu. Watu wanatuambia mambo nyingi sana, lakini nashukuru Mungu sana kwa sababu wazazi wangu wamejua Mungu, wamejua hata vile watoto wanaenda shule na wanapenda shule. Tena wamekuwa tu watu wenye wamejua mambo ya shule.
It's really hard to remember that Stella is just a high school girl. I mean, she's no older than 16, 17 years old, and yet she speaks from such a place of maturity and vulnerability and strength, and like I said before, such hope. Duncan, I remember the first time that we sent you to Pokot. It was during a time when we weren't sure how we were going to remain working there because our local partner had recently left the region. And you came back from Pokot and said, we cannot leave Pokot.
Yes, it is indeed still vivid in my mind. And I was way back in 2013, 7 years ago, and I made the long drive to Pokot. It actually takes you 2 days to drive from Nairobi, capital city, to where the two schools are situated, St. Anne's Chelopoi and the Lale girls. And finally that day when I met the girls and I gave them the letters from their sponsors, and which of course they exchange, and I observed them reading the letters. I could see that ray of hope in their eyes and that they will continue with their education uninterrupted. But again, when we visited Pokot last year around September, which we always do to our partner communities to get to know them better, we did a home visit to one of our sponsored girls who is called Elizabeth Chomosungu. They literally live in the same neighborhood as Stella. And when we found her mom, who had 10 other siblings who are all young and in school, and sadly she had just lost her husband 2 weeks prior to our visit. And her soft voice spoke to us strong messages of hope that I personally reflect today. She has hope that even if her husband had passed on, her children will still go to school because she believes in a God who is a father of orphans and a husband to widows. How they keep hope is a unique gift in this particular community. Today's world, when we are faced with small situations, we give up so quickly. But imagine the situation of Stella, where if they don't go to the mines, the gold mines, they won't have anything to eat for that particular day. So they go to the gold mines with a hope that they will get probably a 0.1 or 0.2 grams of gold, which is sold for $1, $2, or $3 at most. And this is after working for about 5 to 6 hours, digging in the mud and cleaning it. Dorcas and Paulina are heroines in their community who, despite the many challenges they face, they have managed to keep their families together and supported the education of their daughters in the community like Pokot that regards a girl child as a lesser child and who is sold to a suitor in their teenage years in return for a few cows as a dowry price.
Yeah, and we heard Stella talking about that in the video, how especially during this time, the pandemic, and when families are facing even higher levels of poverty, that risk is also heightened. And we know it's happening in Kajiado County as well as West Pokot County. But I'll never forget sitting in Stella's house last year, last September, when we visited her mother, Paulina, and listening to Paulina tell us her story. She has such a strong vision for her community, where she hopes to see a small town and jobs there. And she hopes to see food being grown in her community. And most importantly, she hopes to see all children going to school. And you look at someone like Paulina, who's not had a formal education before, and yet she still has this strong vision and hope. And we asked her while we were with her, do you ever get ridiculed by the community because you believe in educating your daughters and you refuse to give in to any of the cultural pressures of FGM or early marriage? And she looked at us and said, I don't care what they say because I know my daughter is safe in school. And as we were leaving her home, Marissa, one of our team members that year, looked at me and she goes, trailblazer, that's what she is. I mean, as a woman who hadn't been formally educated and has spent literally her entire life working in those mines that you guys saw in the video, to have such strength and hope that this is not the end of their story, that there is a new story and vision on the horizon. You see that same hope that we heard from Paulina last year when we visited her in Stella's story, as she lists all these hardships that she and her classmates are facing right now. And then she says, Corona has messed up our dreams, but that doesn't mean we lose hope. We have hope that schools will reopen and we shall be back to normal. And it's that ability to hold hope while also facing so many challenges, like that you said, it's such a gift that this community has, and something I think both of us have learned so much about life through just sitting and listening to their stories.
Yes, education indeed is power, as they say in this part of the world. And a great African legend by the name Nelson Mandela once said, and I quote, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. End of quote. And again, he quoted and said, without education, your children can never really meet the challenges they face. So it is vital to educate children and explain that they should play a role in their country. I mean, those statements are weighty, and for our communities to realize real and long-lasting change, efforts must be put for all children to access quality and affordable education. And any community that has not given the female gender an opportunity to make decisions and contribute to its development because of lack of education is a community that has never enjoyed any benefits of all its citizens or people. We can only place more girls at the decision-making table and become a voice to many others. High school education will not be enough to propel them to such positions, but once they have a university degree, they become competitive in the job market, earn a meaningful income for themselves, and become role models to other girls. As a person, I envisage to see a Pokot community, which is so disadvantaged, located in the northern frontier of Kenya. And they are used to, when you mention Pokot, you hear stories of cattle rustling, and all manner of sorts of things. I envisage to see the Pokot community with many girls becoming high school principals, leaders in many other spheres of life spheres, and where retrogressive cultural practices will finally be buried and become a thing of the past and can only be learned in literature, but not real life.
Yeah,
yes,
that's a great vision. And I think it's possible. I mean, access to education is there. There's barriers, of course, usually lack of school fees, but I think that vision is possible. Dangi, before we keep going, we did get one question on the YouTube chat. Somebody asked, how did you become such a champion for girls' education?
Thank you so much, Kate. And this is so personal because this inspiration, I got it from my late mom, who went to be with the Lord 24 years ago. And despite her not having gone to school or acquired a formal education, she supported all my brothers and my only sister to go to school. And she worked so hard to make sure that we go to school so that we can change the world. And again, later on in life, I married. I'm a father to 4 daughters. And whenever I see them play, I imagine them, undergoing such, retrogressive cultures. And I say, no way. I want to see them become citizens, good citizens of this republic, contribute meaningfully to the country, go to education, attain the highest level of education that they want, and become the people that they want to be in life. So that is what has inspired me. And I'm walking that journey. Kindly join me.
That's great. Yeah, it's true. I mean, education has the power to break the cycle of poverty in one generation. It's incredible. And it's so exciting to see our university girls studying, especially in Pokot. The girls are they're all studying sciences. They're studying physics and chemistry and biology.
Mathematics,
yeah.
Yes.
It's so exciting to see. And our hope is that as they graduate university, that they go back to their schools and inspire the next generation of students and mentor them and give back. And we're really excited to see more and more girls getting the opportunity to go to university, which is what our fundraising project is for our education program this year. Is we're looking to raise another $5,000 for our university scholarship program so that we can extend more university scholarships this year. Our program every year is growing. More girls are applying to university, and we're constantly telling them to, but then on the other end, we constantly need more funding to provide the scholarships. And so this year we're expecting about 8 or 9 more girls to apply to the university program. And so we need about $5,000 more to be able to meet that need and ensure that every girl who wants to continue on to university has that opportunity. And you look at people like Paulina and Mama Sam and Helen, and these are mothers who have walked very difficult paths in their lives and yet have this hope that their life for their kids is going to be better. And we know that's possible through education. I mean, it's so similar to what you hear around the world. I think any parent that you talk to says, I'm just trying to create a better life and more opportunities than I had for my kids. And the challenges that our partner communities face, they are not because of a lack of hard work or creativity or vision. It's a lack of equality. It's a history of injustices against them. And it's barriers that one person alone cannot remove. But the good news is that together we can remove them. We can write a new story, and a story that turns hope into change. And so tonight we have a choice. We can either turn off our screens and go about the rest of our night, or we can roll up our sleeves and together push the barriers out of the way so that Enkutoto village finds freedom through access to water. So the Alimony village takes another step towards realizing their vision through a sustainable agriculture project. And so that every Kenyan girl has the opportunity to thrive and live out her wildest dreams. Our partner communities are full of people like those you met tonight, who are motivated, who are driven, and who are blazing a new trail. And by partnering with us tonight, you're acknowledging their voices and you're telling them that I believe in what your community has to offer this world. Duncan, what would it mean to wake up tomorrow with full funding for these projects?
Oh my goodness, that will be incredible. And it will impact so many lives. We had shared about 10,000 women in over 10,000 people in Enkutoto village alone who do not have access to clean water. With full funding tonight, that story will change in a month's time. The stories that we've shown you are just 3 stories, but of the so many partner communities that we support through your efforts. And if tonight Harambee is successful, we get all the funding for the plant project. In 2 or 3 in 2 months' time, approximately 10,000 people of Enkutoto and neighboring villages will have access to clean drinking water, which will translate to a drastic drop in waterborne diseases in these particular villages. Over 1,000 women will no longer trek for 25 miles round trip to fetch water from a riverbed, which is not even fit for human consumption. And these women will reduce their trekking distances to 2 or 3 miles, and will have ample time to raise up their children and many hours to do what they love most, doing the beadwork. Our women are gifted in beadwork.
Incredibly gifted. I can't even count the number of necklaces I now
Yes.
own from these women. It's beautiful. And if you watch them do it, it blows my mind. It's all done by hand. There's no machines.
Imagine.
So what I can tell you tonight is that the programs we are fundraising for, just as Duncan said, are going to make an incredible impact in these communities. And they're going to drastically transform thousands of lives. I want nothing more than to, at Harambee 2021, to be showing up and sharing the stories of how tonight's actions impacted all of these people's lives. I know that many of you are still considering the gift that you can give tonight, and some of you have already given, which we are so thankful for. But the question I want to ask is, how far can we push ourselves to write a new story? Whether you joined today prepared to donate $100 or $10,000, what will it cost for you to double or even triple that gift? What will you lose if you stretch yourself further? Duncan, I want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight and for waking up at 2 in the morning to be here with us. It's been such an incredible evening to co-host with you. And I'm so thankful, but I want to make sure that I give you the final word to our guests.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this noble cause. And thank you for working with us. We are here because of you. Whatever we have been able to achieve, we all have a stake to claim in this particular mission. As our friends in Ethiopia, where we have our projects, in Addis Ababa say, in Amharic, Amar Segenalu. And as our Pokot brothers and sisters from where Stella comes from, they say Serenyogu. And where I come from, in our Maasai native tribe language, we say Ashiole. All those statements mean, thank you very much. Thank you so much. And may God bless you all.
Thank you.